What's up, everyone? My name is Ashton, and today I want to talk to you guys about wounds. So, please give me some grace. This is my first time starting this, do videos like this. So, I'm gonna make mistakes. I'm gonna make mistakes. I'm gonna learn, but you guys are gonna learn with me. So, let's do this. All right. So first, wounds. What are they specifically, and especially why is it important in the walk with God? I don't know if you know this, but whenever you do come to God and you're asking Him for all these things, everyone says all the time that God wants to do something in you before He does something for you. And sometimes they don't really elaborate on what that means. Let me go ahead and elaborate for you a little bit. Part of it has to do with your character and developing you into a person or who He created you to be. Part of that has to do with unlearning trauma and healing and dealing with your inner wounds. Now, what are wounds? Wounds, let me go ahead and pull out some verbal dictionary terms for you. Okay, so when I talk about wounds, I'm not talking about physical wounds. Actually, however, the physical wounds mirror the emotional and spiritual wounds. Really, what I'm talking about are wounds of the heart and wounds to your soul. Now, these wounds occur when there are significant emotional damage that's done, whether that's through trauma, whether that's through loss, hurt, betrayal, abandonment, rejection, you name it. Your soul and your heart are going to go through very, very rough experiences in life. And if you do not deal with these wounds, they affect how you perceive life, how you act out of life, and then they determine the course of your life. Meaning, I'll give you an example. A child who has to deal with parents that are not meeting their emotional needs, that are not there for that child, that do not help tend to that child is going to grow up wounded, feeling rejection, feeling abandonment, feeling like people are always going to leave them, people are always going to reject them, and no one is going to ever really be there for them to support them. And this child will learn to be independent, fiercely independent. He or she will seek out relationships in which they're mirrored to themselves the way that they grew up, relationships that they're familiar with, because we are creatures of habit. We tend to gravitate or pull towards what is familiar or what we know rather than what may be immediately beneficial for us. So with that being said, you may be fiercely independent and unconsciously pursue relationships in which it's reinforced that you cannot trust people and that you have to remain fiercely independent. You may be hyper vigilant, always looking out for the next time someone's going to reject you or abandon you, whether that's in your friendship, personal relationship, anything. You're always on the lookout because you do not want to experience this pain. At the root of this is a survival mechanism that is helping you or has helped you survive up until this point. And so you've done things and you've operated out of this belief system. However, it becomes detrimental for you because you are no longer a child. You are a grown adult, or you're a teenager, or you're growing up out of that phase and you're moving into a space of life where the same survival mechanisms aren't necessarily required in this stage. And though you have survived, you can go now operate in a place of thriving, but because you don't deal with the wounds that have gotten you to this point and the behaviors and mindset that have gotten you to this point, you will forever be surviving in a space that you should be thriving in. What does that mean? It means that you will always still be lookout on the hunt for pain and for abandonment and for rejection where there is none. Where there is love, you won't be able to receive it. You will run from it because you cannot receive it. You cannot accept it. You cannot believe it. And you will do things that will self-sabotage. You will do things that would jeopardize. You will do things to run away from the very thing you are seeking. A good example of this is in relationships. If you yourself have experienced this, or you know someone that experiences this, a person who's always in toxic relationships, they naturally gravitate towards other toxic relationships, and they don't know why. It could be your second, third, fourth, fifth marriage, and you're still having issues. It's because you don't know that you're unconsciously contributing to the people that you are attracting to you and to the behaviors that lead to the self-fulfilling prophecies, right, that come from your subconscious, from your thought patterns, from your core beliefs. So, now that I've said all that, what do wounds feel like? For me, when I came to Christ, there was this awakening of my heart, right? People say cold-hearted. People say you're calloused-hearted. You're hard-hearted. This is all true. My heart was like stone, complete stone. I could not feel love. I could not love. I had no capacity for it, no room for it. All I could be was angry and vengeful and hateful. So when it came to Christ, he took my heart and he made it alive. And so it was like it was beating again. It was no longer just like hardened. It was like I could feel all of the wounds. And these wounds felt like physical wounds, like scabs, like it felt like blisters, like it felt like shards. It felt like gunk, like icky, gross gunk. And just like, I don't know if you've seen the movie like Venom, like the way it's just like a little blob of gunk moving around. It felt like that was in my heart. And so when I came to Christ, one of the toughest things that I had to deal with was unforgiveness. I would not forgive people for nothing. If you wrong me, you are dead to me. Point blank, period. And so when I came to Christ and he asking me to forgive, I'm reading my Bible, I'm asking me to forgive, I had to do a situation where someone wronged me and I had to forgive them. And I knew that I had to forgive them. I know that God was telling me to forgive them. And I wanted to refuse it so badly. And I knew the right thing to do though. So I went out and I had dinner with them and I explained my frustration to them and I forgave them. And it felt like this venomous gunk was just fighting to leave my heart, and it was immediately pulled out. I had anxiety, like crippling anxiety, like the rest of the night. I couldn't even do anything else. But those are the kinds of wounds that I'm talking about. And I'll get into that about how to heal these wounds in a minute, but what I'm trying to say is that these wounds are very real. When you're rejected, when you're abandoned, when you're betrayed, when you're traumatized in any way, violated in any way, these affect your heart. And this is why God tells you so fervently to guard your heart, to protect it, because all of these things have such an increased ability to hurt you, to harm you, and to make you live out of that wound. So let me speak a little bit more about how the wounds have played out in my life personally. So my dad was a textbook narcissist. I mentioned this before. He rejected and validated me, made me feel like my needs and cares didn't matter. I learned that I should never feel any other kind of emotion. I should numb out of my emotions because they don't matter. No one's going to listen to me. No one's going to hear me, especially because I'm a man. Men don't cry. I shouldn't have to have any emotions. I shouldn't deal with anything. I should just accept things and move on. Try to control it if I can control it. Dominate what I can dominate. Anything else, I can't do anything. Move on. And you can't feel anything. You can't trust anyone with your emotions, right? You can't trust anyone to be your safe space because you're not allowed to have emotions. You just have to be this stoic, manly person all the time, 24/7, and crying is for women. Then I had the fear of making mistakes, fear of failure, being rejected or criticized anytime I made a failure or made a mistake, made myself feel like a failure. I would deepen it by self-criticism and harsh blaming, because that is what was programmed into me. Goodness, the abandonment wound. My dad always threatened to leave us, threatened to abandon us, threatened us to leave us on our own because we were ungrateful, because we didn't do what he wanted, because we were unworthy of having him, right? And that's another wound, unworthiness. Feeling like I'm unworthy of love. I'm unworthy of having my needs met. I'm unworthy of someone caring for me. I'm unworthy of love because the person who brought me into this world cannot love me. So no one will ever love me. And that leads me to seeking love in all the wrong places. That's how I end up sleeping with a bunch of different women, That's how I end up trying to look for validation, trying to get people to notice me, trying to get people to see me, trying to get people to recognize me so that I can feel worthy. I gotta post the hottest picture on Instagram. I gotta have a bunch of likes. I gotta have a bunch of people in my comment section because I need someone to give me everything I have been missing in my entire life. Everything I didn't get in my childhood now, I need to seek throughout external solutions in the world that can be very destructive to the core being of who I am. Now, instead of being accepted or loved for who I am, because I'm acting out of those wounds, I become inauthentic and I start trying to fit a mold to please everyone. I feel like everyone has to see me as this tough, nice, cool guy. As everyone has to see me as this guy who gets a bunch of girls. Everyone has to see me in this certain way because in this certain way, if I act in this certain way, if I operate in this certain way, then I can get the love I want. Then I can get the validation I want. Then I can have someone meet my needs that weren't cared for. And that's a very, very dangerous place to be. But what do you know? This is all you know. So this is how you live. Now, when it comes to what you have to do to heal with them, what you have to do to heal from these wounds, when it comes to what you have to do to heal from these wounds, I'm going to tell you this first and foremost. It's going to start with God. It's going to start with God. It's going to end with God. You can't readily see your wounds. You don't know. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know you're a chronic people pleaser. You could know you're a people pleaser, but you don't really know the extent of what you're a people pleaser. You could be a people pleaser in terms of giving your friend, whoever asks what you want, give it to them. You could be a people pleaser where you're in traffic and you gotta let someone else like come in front of you. You always gotta let the person with the blinker on come in front of you because you just have to be the nice guy. You just have to do the nice thing. You have to go out of your way to give someone something, to be nice to this person. You have to say the right words all the time. Like there are levels to this stuff. And so it's going to start with Jesus. It's going to start with reading your Bible, even if you don't understand the words. It's going to start with you reading every single time and coming to God every single time and asking Him to explain the word to you, asking Him to come into your heart and change things for you. And when you start to do that, you'll notice that events in your life start to line up in a certain way to where you have to confront these situations of the heart. Like I mentioned with the unforgiveness thing, the timing of it is ridiculous. And it also, you kind of get to notice more of God's inner working in your life. Over the course of this, you get to learn more of the fact that He is in control and that the control we think we have is really just an illusion. To be completely honest, it really is, and fall victim to it every time. But God will set up these events in your life where you have to forgive someone. You have to trust someone with your emotions. You have to rely on someone to help you meet a need. Like let's say you have a bill you can't pay, you have something you can't afford, you are in dire need of help and assistance. God will put you in a position to where you have to be able to extend that help, and you open yourself up for that wound, and that wound receives healing. And that's how you move through it. But it's going to happen with prayer. It's going to happen with conscious intentionality. It's going to happen with insight. And some things that can be blocking your insight, or if you're engaged with porn all the time, it's going to be blocking your insight because you can't see your heart. It's going to numb your heart out and numb your senses. If you're engaged with drugs all the time, you're going to be escaping your emotions. If you're always on the go, if you're always trying to do something, if you're always working, all of these things are going to be avoidant behaviors, and they're going to help you avoid the rough, painful emotions. But I'm sure as you know, the only way to deal with healing, the only way to deal with painful emotions is to confront them head on. Because if you don't deal with them, you bury them, and you avoid them, and you push them away, you push them down, act like they don't exist, and they will always resurface, and they will always deal with you, because pain demands to be felt. It demands to be seen, it demands to be heard, and it will have no other way. It's not possible. So this is my part one on wounds. I'm gonna come back to this topic a lot. There are a lot of different ones I want to talk about, like what it is like growing up like black in America, growing up black in white neighborhoods, and how that impacted the way I view the world. Like there are so many different things, relationships, cheating, goodness gracious. Oh, so I'm gonna be doing this series, or doing this topic for a while. So if you like the video, please leave a like, please leave a comment about this or anything you want me to talk about. It's Ashton. Peace.